right. We're on page 139 in your grammar books, so we'll start there. 139. It's review today. Pretty easy. 139. Talking about actually a couple of our dress ups that we already use in our writing. So this is going to be super easy for you guys. Strong verbs, already using that, quality adjectives and ly adverbs. So basically it says a strong verb, a quality adjective, and an ly adverb are three different ways to dress up writing. These stylistic devices add a strong image and feeling. A strong verb is an action verb, never a linking or helping verb. Those are the words like was or will be, things like that, have been. Those are the linking and helping verbs. So those are not strong verbs. Actually, only the action ones are strong verbs. And then a quality adjective is more specific than a weak adjective. A weak adjective is overused, boring, or vague. We've already talked about that. Ly adverb is used to enhance the meaning of a verb, or another word they've used is modify a verb. An adjective or adverb that it modifies. There's that word modifies. Okay. Basically, all we're going to do is practice right here. You're going to underline the weak word in the sentence and then circle a stronger word in the list below. Think about the meaning of the words in the context of the sentence. Pretty easy right here. So the first one just basically says, the outlaws ran to Robin's aid. The weak verb is pretty obvious there, it's ran. And there's so many better ways we can put that for a better image. We have fled, traveled, hopped, hurried, and rushed. By the way, in each one of these, they put another weak verb in here to kind of throw you off. Obviously, that one would be hopped because the outlaws are not going to hop like a bunny rabbit to go help Robin, right? That's kind of silly. So that one wouldn't work. But then each one of these actually kind of changes the meaning of the sentence a little bit. So the outlaws fled to Robin's aid. Fled isn't really perfect either because that usually means to run away from. If you flee away, fled, flee somewhere. So, and then if you use traveled, that kind of implies that maybe they were not moving too fast, right? Traveling, like, you know, maybe on horse, but traveled could imply that they're going slow. Hurried would work, or rushed. Either one of those would work. So you get to pick. It can be different for everybody. I recommend either hurried or rushed. Either one of those would work. I'm going to go ahead and circle hurried. So the outlaws hurried to Robin's aid. So that's basically what we're doing. We're looking for the weak verb, and then kind of in your mind, look at the list below. And there's always one that's going to throw you off a little bit. But look at the meaning of the sentence, and then you decide which one you think would fit best in the sentence. So I'll start with Bronx. The sentence is, the hungry men ate a hearty stew. So what is the verb, first of all, in that sentence? Ate. And it's weak, right? Overused. What word would you pick underneath that that would be a better fit for that sentence?
Devoured.
Devoured, yes. There's more than one answer. I was going to tell you that. So devoured would work, yes. Or feasted on. Nibbled wouldn't work because that implies that they were taking small bites, right? Nibbled, and they were hungry. So I know if you're a hungry guy, you're not going to take little bites, I'm sure. So that one wouldn't work. And then slurped, that could work for a hearty stew, but when you slurp, it usually means you're eating slower, maybe because it's hot or something, you're slurping it. So I would pick devoured. You could use either consumed or feasted on. Those would work too. Okay, the next sentence, the stranger was big. So in this sentence, you're actually going to look for a weak word. It's not a verb in this sentence. It's actually a weak adjective. So Paisley, what's the weak adjective in that sentence?
Big.
Yeah, big. So what's a better word you can put in that sentence?
Huge.
Yep, that would work. Roomy, that's kind of funny. That's that's what you would say if you're buying a truck or something, you know, and you're like, oh, this truck, this cab is roomy, you know, it's got lots of space in it. It wouldn't be how you would describe the size of a person. So roomy doesn't really work. Broad, that could work because you're talking about broad shoulders, gigantic, towering, any of those would actually work. Okay, so Abby, Robin was a good man. What's the weak adjective in that sentence?
Good.
Yes. And what would be a good replacement for that?
Maybe noble.
Yes, I'd agree with that. Delicious? No, really, no. That's weird. I don't know. They threw that in there to throw you off. Admirable, yes, that could work. Impressive, okay, that could work. Hardworking, okay, yeah, that could work. But notice how each one of those actually kind of changes the sentence just slightly. Hardworking implies that he's got a good work ethic, and he's you know, maybe like a burly guy that's kind of loves to work outdoors and hardworking. So it's interesting how each one of those adjectives can change the reader's perspective on what's happening in the sentence or what they're describing. All right, so back to Bronx. He was awfully wet. So the word is an adverb here. What's the weak adverb?
Awfully.
Awfully. Awfully wet. So what's another word you can put there in place of that?
Very.
You could use very. That still is kind of weak though. What's your second pick?
Surprisingly.
Yeah, surprisingly, that would be a good one. Basically, that's telling the reader that he didn't expect to be wet. He was surprisingly wet. So that changes that sentence a little bit. Thoroughly would be a good one too. That means like drenched, right? Like he's thoroughly wet. He's wet all the way to his skin. Noticeably, that would work. Uncommonly, that's kind of a weird one. That doesn't quite fit. Uncommonly wet. So basically, this is just a practice to show you there's different ways you can fill in those weak words. And depending on what you use will change the meaning of the sentence a little bit for the reader. And then it just says, continue to look for strong verbs, quality adjectives, and ly adverbs in this book and write them on the collection pages found in Appendix 2. At the very back of your book, there is a place for you to keep a list. It's optional, but it would be nice for you to have a written out list if you come across words as you're reading stuff or as you hear the words, or even finding them in this book. You can kind of keep a little log in the back of some strong verbs, quality adjectives, and ly adverbs. That's pretty easy. We're done with that page. Any questions about that page? If not, you can just shake your head and then I know that you're good. Okay. Let's go on to the practice page 141. Okay. Let's see, Paisley, could you read our sentence today, please? Paisley, do you mind reading this sentence?
Although the giant man moved quickly, Robin's men dragged him to the water. He struggled ferociously.
Yeah, that one's furiously. Good job. Good reading though. So although the giant moved quickly, Robin's men dragged him to the water. He struggled furiously. All right. The vocabulary word is struggled. We already know pretty much that means to fight with an opponent or adversary, or with he struggled. He was having a hard time trying to get away from this guy, the giant. Furiously, you probably already know, is super angry, right? He's furious, he's angry. Okay, go ahead and check the vocabulary at the top there. Write in your articles. Go ahead and label them. There's only 2. 3 nouns. I'm going to go back up to, actually, I'll go on Abby for this one. What are the 3 nouns we're looking for here?
Giant,
Yes.
men,
Yes.
and water.
Yes. Good. And then Bronx, the pronouns, those are the words that take the place of a noun.
Him.
Yes, him. And there's one more.
He.
Yes, good. Paisley, what about the adjective? It's a word that describes the noun. There's only one here.
Robin's.
Good. Yep, you got it, because it's describing whose men, Robin's men. Good. And then Abby, the adverbs, there's 2 of them in here.
Quickly and furiously.
Yes, good. They have the ly. That's good. Okay, prepositional phrase, there's only one. So Bronx, do you think you know where it's at?
Robin's men dragged him to the water.
That's close. You have too much on the front end of that. So you started with Robin's, that's actually an adjective. So you remember that prepositional phrase starts with a preposition.
Okay, so men dragged him to the water.
You started that one with a noun.
All right, so dragged him to the water.
Okay, but dragged is a verb. So keep trying.
Him to the water.
Him is a pronoun.
To the water.
Yes, woo, you got it. To the water. Wow, you did it. Okay, remember, little clue. And I think this would help you, Bronx, and probably the other girls too, if you need that. You can come back to that, like when you're doing your homework, skip that, find the rest of the stuff, because it's got to be a word that doesn't have a label. So to the water is the prepositional phrase. Okay, good job. All right, adverb clause. This starts with an adverb. Adverb clause. We got to write this in really quick. www.asia.b. Remember that? We've been talking about it. www.asia.b. One of those words is in here. Do you know where it's at, Paisley? When, while, where, as, since, if, although, because. Those are the words you're looking for.
Although. So quickly.
Yes, good. Although the giant moved quickly. Excellent. We're going to label that AC for adverb clause. My pen is kind of failing on me here. That's an A. Good, excellent. And then the main clauses, there's two of them. So what are the main clauses, Abby?
Robin's men dragged him to the water and he struggled furiously.
Good. Yep, those are the two main clauses. Then we've got the subject verb pairs. All right, so I'm going to go back to Bronx. So let's just focus on the verbs first. So look for the action words. There's 3 of them here.
Quickly.
Not quickly. That's already an adverb. So I'm looking for action words, like which words show action.
Struggled.
Struggled. Yes, that's a verb.
Dragged.
Dragged is a verb. Good. One more.
Fiercely.
Nope, we already have that one as an adverb. So if it already has a label, it's not going to be one of those words.
Moved.
Yes, there you go. Moved, dragged, and struggled. Those are all action words. So those are the verbs. And then to find the subject, so I'm going to go on to Paisley for this. Each verb has a subject with it. So if I look at the first verb, moved, who was it that moved?
Giant.
Giant, good. And then here, dragged, who dragged?
Men.
Good. And then struggled, who struggled?
He.
Good. Got it. Nice. Now we got 2 different openers because we actually have 2 different sentences. So well, let's start with that, Abby. Where does the sentence, because we have 2 end marks here. Where does the first sentence end?
After water.
Yes, so we need to take out this comma, do a little squiggly mark there and squeeze in a period. And then we got this little sentence here, so we'll put a period at the end of that. So now we have 2 sentences. So Abby, do you know what the first opener is for the first sentence?
Number 5.
Yes, and what is it, number 5?
I forgot what it's called, but it's like the clause opener.
Yeah, clausal. You're right there. That's close enough. Clausal. Because it's an adverb clause, but you're right. It is number 5. Excellent. And then let me see if Bronx knows the next opener right here. It says he struggled furiously. That's the whole sentence. So can you take a guess on what kind of an opener it is?
2.
2, not 2.
1.
I'll give you a clue. There's only 3 words in that sentence. You remember which one that is?
3.
No, it's actually number 6. If you look at the front of the book, let me just show you really quick so you know where it's at. This is where you can find the openers, because this is kind of tricky. Remember this page I showed you a while back? It's like a few pages in at the very front of the book. You have 1 subject opener, 2 prepositional opener, 3 ly adverb opener, 5 clausal opener, and 6 VSS. Do you remember what VSS stands for, Bronx? Very.
I don't know.
You don't remember? That's okay. Do you remember, Paisley, what VSS stands for?
Very short sentence.
Yes, very short sentence. So those are sentences that have 2 or 3 words. So VSS stands for very short sentence. Did you find this page, by the way, Bronx? Did you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you know where it's at. So VSS, that's going to be number 6. Oops. Since this sentence only has 3 words, it's going to be a number 6. I'm going to squeeze it in right here. Number 6, VSS. Very short sentence. All right, that's the opener. We've got 3 capitals. So we got here, Robbins, and he. 2 commas. Well, we took out 1 comma, but now we need to fix another comma issue. So Abby, what do you think? What are we fixing here?
Put in a comma after quickly.
Yes, good. So right here between the adverb clause and the main clause. If the main clause came first, you won't need a comma, but since the adverb clause comes first, you do need a comma there. Good. We already took care of the end marks, and we do have an apostrophe we need to fix. Bronx, do you know where the apostrophe goes?
Rewrite it. You add your own.
Although.
No, we're looking for a word that ends with S that needs an apostrophe on it. You know what apostrophe is? Remember, it's like at the top, it's a little mark at the top. Usually, if it's talking about an adjective.
Yeah.
It's possessive. It's a possessive word. So it means like the men, I'm going to give you a clue right here. The men belong to, what's this word here? Robbins. So since it's the men that belong to Robin's men, that's where the apostrophe goes right here. Robin's men. Okay. Good job, guys. We're done with that page. You can write it out later. And then, as usual, your homework is the next 3 pages. So 142, 143, and 144. And we're done with this. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that. Okay. Now, moving on to the binder. This away real quick. Okay. This week, you guys finished up your keyword outline for either the bike or ballerina story. Give me a thumbs up if you were able to finish that, the keyword outline part. Okay, good. So for your homework this coming week, you're actually going to write the story. You probably figured that out. So you're going to use your keyword outline and write, either you did the ballerina one or the bike one, and write the story using your keyword outline and your checklist. You got to make sure to use that. So we're going to have that as your homework, but during class today, we're going to move on to the next week. But your homework is going to be still the bike or ballerina. Does that make sense to you guys? So we're going to move on during class. So go ahead and get out. Okay, so let me tell you this. Leave the bike and ballerina still at the front of your binder because you're still working on that. But you're going to get out the next week right now from your binder. So go ahead and go to your source text tab, that first tab in your binder. And you're going to get out the next week, which is week 13. So right here, source text. You're going to get out week 13, which should be right here on top. So you'll see week 13 at the top, coconut crabs. Go ahead and take out this page, which is the overview page. You're also going to take out this yellow page. This is page 117. You're also going to take out, you're taking out a bunch. I'll tell you that now, okay? Source text A, this is called the coconut crab, page 119. You're also going to take out this page, which is 121, coconut crabs in print and on the web. This one, a huge crustacean. That one comes out, that's 123. Am I going too fast? You guys, okay? Okay. And then 125, which is the checklist. So basically all of week 13, when you see week 14, you're going to leave that in there. Okay, so all of week 13 comes out, close up your rings. And just leave your bike or ballerina stuff you're working on, just leave it at the front of your binder for now. We're going to focus on these pages during class. Okay. All right. This one's just the overview page, so we're not really doing much with this, but I just want you to keep it together like we usually do. So that one you can set aside for a minute. This one I'm going to come back to, okay? So I'm going to have you just set that aside for a minute too, and then we will be looking at this source text, but first, I want you to get out a lined piece of paper. We're going to take some class notes here. So it's kind of exciting because we are moving on to the next unit. So unit 5 was writing a story using pictures. You guys did that a couple of times with the dog and the table and the bike or the ballerina. You guys have been working on those, which is pretty fun because it's creative writing, you know. So this now is moving on to unit 6, which is summarizing multiple references. And unit 6 is back to academic writing. So you know how we flip back and forth from creative writing. Now we're coming back to academic writing. This is basically writing a report again, more like a research paper. So go ahead and label your paper like you always do with your name. And then today's date is March 21st. Name goes there. And we're just going to call this class notes. This is, I'm going to give you some notes that you're going to write down to use for this next unit to help you kind of get in your head where you're going with this unit and help you organize your thoughts. This is going to be very different for you, but I'm excited because, you know, you guys are all in junior high, getting into high school. And when you're in high school, you will have research papers to work on. That's when you take a topic or a subject, and then you find out information about it and you kind of give your report on what you learned about. And it's a little bit like when you did, what did we do? Was it perfume? Was it the perfume thing? What did you guys do a study on? I forgot. We could look back for a second here. Oh, like, well, you did one on Mike the Headless Chicken. There was a report on that. Forgot what it was that you guys wrote about. Sorry, let me look back just really quick here so I can kind of jar your memory. Captain Cook. we wrote a little research paper about Captain Cook. That was more like a biography about him. You took information and you put it into like a summary. Remember when you summarized that? Same type of idea, but this time it's a little bit deeper because you have 3 different source texts. So basically you have 3 sources that you're using to create a report on one subject. Okay, so when you do research, let's go ahead and skip a line and write the word research. That word research has the prefix re, which you already know means again. So research essentially means to search again. So when you do research on a subject, it could be anything. It could be Antarctica, it could be the killer whale, it could be maybe some famous athlete that you like to follow, or research on the most powerful engine for your vehicle or whatever. I'm making up crazy stuff, but you get the idea. When you do a research paper, you start with a subject, right? That's the big topic, the big thing you're writing about is the subject. There are some places you can go to find information. Where can you find information, let's say about a volcano? Let's say you want to do research on a volcano. What is a volcano? What is, where are they located? What is it about? What's happening? Where would you find information about that? If you know, go ahead and raise your hand. Where would you find information about volcanoes? Bronx? Sorry.
Hawaii.
All right, but where would you find that? Like, how would you know volcanoes are in Hawaii? Where would you go to find information?
Like Google.
Google. All right, so we'll put Google, and I'm going to put /web, basically the internet, right? Google or web, you're excellent, Bronx, you're right. You could go to Google and type in volcanoes and boom, you've got like probably hundreds of resources. You could look up articles, videos, images, all kinds of stuff you can find on Google. What is another source? Abby, can you think of another source you could use to find out information about volcanoes?
Books.
Good, books for sure. That's kind of old school, but that's all right, because you could go to the library and go to the librarian and say, do you have any books on volcanoes? And they'll go, oh yeah, go to this section over here and you can find a book. I saw your hand, Bronx. Did you think of another one?
Like TV documents on them.
TV, like documentaries?
Yeah.
All right, yes. Documentaries. Especially like, what is it? What's that magazine? National Geographic, like National Geographic documentaries and stuff. Those are pretty cool. But yeah, you can find out a lot of information on that. In fact, Disney has done a few documentaries on different continents and animals and sea creatures and things like that. So that's a good one. How about Paisley? Can you think of another source that you could use? She says no. That's all right. How about encyclopedias? That's kind of the same as books, but a little different. Encyclopedias. Whoops. Wait. Hold on. It's an E. By the way, next to research, I want you to put sources. Because what we're doing is basically listing different sources of where you could find information. Another one could be magazines. Now, we don't really use paper magazines anymore, but if you're doing a research paper, let's say on the Constitution, for example, you would go to political magazines, or there's also scientific historical magazine articles that you could find. You still would use probably Google to find them, but magazines is another source that you can use. Those usually require a subscription. If you're in college and you're trying to do a research paper, you might subscribe to some different magazines, maybe like the New York Times or something, some kind of a news type magazine. You got to be careful though. And this is something I'm going to be talking to you about along the way, because as you know, especially today, it's hard to find the truth, right? It's hard to find the truth. Now, if you're researching volcanoes, it's not as difficult to find the truth about volcanoes. But if you research anything political, I will tell you now, as I'm not going to call myself a politician, because even though I'm in politics, I don't ever want that label. But now that I know about politics, trying to research information, Bronx knows, he's laughing and nodding. It's true. It's really, really, really difficult to find true factual information. And, conspiracies and everything's out there. Some of those conspiracies have been proven, and some of them, are kind of, it's hard to know. It's hard to know. And then you've got different sides and opinions. Okay. So just so you know, when you do research online, there's some tricks that you can do, and we'll be talking about this along the way, of how to tell if something is credible or not, how to tell if something is accurate or not. So just a little summary of that. Now, there are some steps that we're going to do in our research process here. So I'm going to have you just draw a line to separate these two out. And then what I'm going to have you put here is steps. The first step in writing a research paper is coming up with your subject. That's the broad thing that you're talking about, the big thing that you're talking about. Oh, I know what it was. You guys wrote about dangerous birds. Remember that a while back? Yeah, that's what it was. So you wrote about different types of birds and how they were poisonous and what happened when you touched them or got scratched by one or whatever. So that was your subject, was dangerous birds. And then we talked about the topics were what type of birds. So basically your next step is to come up with possible topics. And then the next step is you need to know the length of your paper. And a lot of times this is tricky because in high school and college, sometimes they tell you a word count, like you need to write a 2,000 word essay, right? And I always hated that because you're like 2,000 words. Well, how am I going to keep track of it? I mean, you can on Google Docs or on Word, but it's hard to understand how long 2,000 words is because you don't know how many paragraphs or pages or whatever. So it helps if you know if your teacher can give you an assignment within number of paragraphs, that will tell you how many topics you need. So you need to choose number of paragraphs needed, or the length. I think I did my paragraph symbol backwards. I think it goes the other way, but you know what I mean. Choose the number of paragraphs needed. So that's going to be a little tricky if you get a word count assignment to figure out how many paragraphs you need. But if you know the number of paragraphs, that will help you so much when you're doing a research paper. Number 4 is your source outlines. And this is your KWO. We're still going to be using keyword outlines to help drive your information on writing your research paper. This will help you like forever with writing if you need to do research. This technique is so good to have tucked away in your head to help you write research papers. Number 5, this is going to be new to you. This is called a fused outline, and I will explain that in just a minute. But just know that's one of the steps is called a fused outline. And the last one, number 6, write paragraphs with checklist. Now, just to give you a heads up, you're still only writing a 3-paragraph research paper. Okay, so eventually in this class, hopefully we can get to it before we're done in May. But if you keep going in this binder, you're going to eventually move into a 5-paragraph research paper that includes an introduction paragraph and a conclusion paragraph. But for now, we're going to just focus on the body part of the research paper. That is the topics that you're going to choose to write about within your paper. So eventually it'll have an introduction and a conclusion. Okay, so this is what we're going to be working on in this unit. And I forgot to tell you up here, the reason why we use different resources is because you might get different opinions. Like I said, you know, you might look on the web or on Google, and then you watch a documentary and you're like, yeah, that's a little bit different. So this person's documentary said a couple of different things than the Google. You have to sift through if it's accurate. If it is, that's kind of cool to get different perspectives on something. And then checking facts, like when you do research and you look underneath these different sources, you'll see some common themes. Like if you're talking about volcanoes, you're going to see probably lava is an obvious one. You're going to find information about lava in all of these sources. So that would be probably something you would want to focus on as one of your topics. So if you see common things in the same types of topics in different sources, that's usually a clue that that's information you want to include. And then there's different levels of reading in each one of these and different styles of writing. So documentaries are obviously more visual. And then you might have some books that are pretty boring to read. They're very factual, but you might find on Google some really interesting and almost entertaining information. So basically different types of information in each one of these sources. Okay, so now the next step is I'm going to have you turn this page over to the back side. This might look a little crazy to you, but I want you to bear with me on this, okay? What I'm going to have you do first is draw 3 boxes up here about that size. And I'm going to have you just write in the middle of them A, B, and C. And and we're just going to call these different sources. So we'll just put at the top of this one, book, top of this one, we'll put web, and the top of this one, we'll put MAG for magazine. And we'll just pretend for a second that these are 3 different sources that we're using for this research paper. Oops, it's trying to focus. There we go. When you have a book, let's say you go to the library and you're wanting to write about volcanoes or whatever, let's just say that for an example. And you find a book and you open it up, how are you going to know what's in that book? Where do you look to find out what information will you find in that book? Remember what that's called, Abby?
Table of contents.
Yes, table of contents. That's right. So let's just put T of C, or sometimes you can find it in the index, which is sometimes at the back of the book. right? If you go to the table of contents, that's usually at the front of the book, it'll tell you chapter 1 is about lava, chapter 2 is about tropical locations, chapter 3 is active and inactive volcanoes. Okay, so that's an example of where you would find what kinds of topics could be inside of that book. On the web or the internet, what would you do to find out possible topics? Like what would you do when you first open up your browser? What do you do to look for different topics about volcanoes? What I'm looking for is a word search, right? You would go to Google and you would type in volcanoes, right? So we would do a word search. That's for the web. In a magazine, you would do a paragraph search. So you might flip through a magazine and look at what are these paragraphs talking about in the magazine. You would skim, basically, skim the magazine for information. Okay. Let's pretend for a second that our subject is volcanoes, because I keep talking about that. So we'll pretend our subject is volcanoes. And we decide as we skim, as we're going through these, that lava is some information that I'm finding in the books and on the websites and in the magazines. Lava is a common theme between all three. So underneath each one of these sources, you would do just a really short keyword outline. And we're just going to make it 1, 2, 3. Actually, let's put in parentheses 4, 5. Same here. And I still want you to use Roman numeral 1. This is still 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is optional. Still number Roman numeral 1 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't worry about writing clincher yet on this part. So basically, I would look at these books at the table of contents. And let's say, we picked the topic lava. So go ahead and put lava, lava, lava. Notice we are looking at only one topic. Our broad subject is volcanoes. Our first topic is lava. So we're going to see in each of these sources what we can find about lava. That's why we're still calling this Roman numeral 1 for each of those sources, because we're focusing just on lava. And let's pretend for a second that all of these are filled in. We've got keywords. We're finding out about the chemical makeup of lava, what temperature it's at, what temperature does it go down to turn black and harden, where is the volcanoes that have active lava flowing from them? Does the lava spew out or does it roll out? Okay, so you get the idea. You're going to find, all kinds of crazy information in each one of these sources about lava. Now, this is where it gets a little crazy, but this is good. I want you to skip a couple lines, skip 2, and I want you to put the words fused outline. And I want you here to put, you can skip a line and put Roman numeral 1. I'm doing it in the middle of the page on purpose here. And we're going to put lava here again. And now I'm going to have you number to 6 and then 7 in parentheses. 7 is optional. And this is where we're going to put that word clincher. And on the other side of this, put topic. So we've got topic, still talking about lava. And now we have the word clincher. As you're making these 3 different outlines, these keyword outlines, you're going to notice that some facts are going to be repeated. If you find that, that means that's probably a good thing to include in your final fused outline. And what you're also going to notice is some of the facts that you find might be more interesting than others as you find out information about lava. So here's how this is going to work. Let's say for a minute, this bit of information here, go ahead and circle number 1. You really like that. Let's say you found something about the, where are the active volcanoes that have actual lava coming out of them right now? You like that information. So what you would do, and I'm just going to draw an arrow from number 1 to number 1 right here. You would move these 3 keywords, symbols and numbers and abbreviations, move it here to this main outline. And let's say, pretend for a second for number 2, it's kind of boring information. Maybe it's talking about, I don't know, maybe it's something you don't really care about, which would be like the original volcano or something. I don't know. I'm trying to make something up, but let's just say you're like, I don't know if I really need that. You're going to just cross out number 2. But number 3 might be talking about where the volcanoes are right now that are active. So you might like the information you found on number 3. You find that really interesting. So you can move that one. Now draw an arrow to number 2 on your fused outline. And you didn't really care for number 4 and number 5 from this source, which is the book, but you liked 1 and 3. Looking at the web though, let's pretend you found some really cool information about the chemical makeup of lava. You found that in this one, I almost said Roman numeral, but this is number 1. You really like what you found here. You're going to move that down to number 3. I told you this was going to get crazy, okay? You really liked number 2 information. You heard about the effect lava has on towns, or maybe like the ash that comes off of the volcanoes from the lava that you've thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. I like number 2. I'm going to put that down here for number 4. Number 3, 4, and 5 are meh. I don't really care about those. Number 1 over here from your magazine source is meh. Ooh, number 2 you really like. Yes, I really like number 2. I'm going to put that here. I really like number 3 and number 4. That information is really interesting. I'm going to include that in my report. Number 5 was meh. All right, I'll give you a second if you're still writing all that down. So basically what I did was circle the number next to the facts that I found interesting, and that maybe I saw a repetition with these different sources, and I want to include that in my report. I would put them together. This is called fused, okay? Fused means like to attach together. If you're welding something, if you're gluing something, you're fusing it together. So you're taking all 3 of the sources with the information you found, and you're putting it into one fused outline. Now from here, this is how you write your first paragraph. I know it sounds tedious and long and like super involved, but I'm telling you, this will help you so much know what to do for your research paper. Because a lot of times your teacher might say, write a research paper about something. And you're like, where do I start? How do I know what to write about? What do I find? How do I know where to look? All of those things, you can use this technique right here to help you come up with the information you need to put in your paragraphs. This is just paragraph 1. And guess what? You would do the same thing for paragraph 2 and the same thing for paragraph 3. That is how, and that's the overview on how you would create a research paper using multiple sources. All right, I'm going to pause there for a second. Do you guys have any questions so far about what we're talking about? Okay, so it's starting to make sense. That's really good. Now, just taking a sneak peek, because we're almost out of time here, on your sources. So you will see here, source text A, this is the coconut crab, this is page 119. Notice you have source text B, this is another article called Coconut Crabs in Print and on the Web. And source text C, a huge crustacean, I think is how you pronounce that, but we're going to learn about that. So it's nice how this curriculum has it set up for you because you already have your source A, B, and C, and that's what you're going to use here. You don't have to go to the internet. You don't have to go to the library and get out a book. They gave you your sources. So we're going to start next week setting up A, B, and C, all of the different information and facts that you find from each one of those sources, and then fuse it together in one outline. We're going to walk through those steps for these next week. I better stop there, even though I really want to tell you what's next, but I better stop there. Okay, that's where we're headed. Big research paper. But for this week, for your homework, you're going to finish up let's see. Oh, you're going to write your story because you guys already did your keyword outline for bike or ballerina. So this week is going to be back to just fun, creative writing with that. Don't forget to use your checklist. Make sure you have all your dress up words in there. Make sure you use your topic clincher, all the stuff we've been working on. So you're going to finish that story this week. And then we're moving on to some deep, deep research. It's good. It's good stuff. And then, of course, your grammar is pages 142 to 144. Okay, I did a lot of talking this time. Hopefully you guys are okay. But we're going to be in Unit 6 for a little while. And they've tried to find some interesting topics for you guys to use and subjects for you to write about. So hopefully this will be enjoyable for you in the long run. So if you don't have any questions, that's all I have for you today. All right. You guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good one, you guys.